guys doing? Came in from South Carolina this morning and been out there for a few days. And as he said, I get the benefit of not just being an educator, I get to be a speaker. So this is what I get to do. I spend my life in airplanes, but I spend my life outside of that on stage and talking to corporations, and it's a really great gig. And what I talk about, I actually work with the Center for Generational Kinetics. Fancy term for we help companies solve generational issues. So whether that's McDonald's, Honda, GE, whoever it is, they bring us in specifically with a generational focus, which is fun. So we talk about youngsters, and one of the topics most people want to hear about are millennials. Anybody sick and tired of hearing about millennials? Totally, I get it. So we talk a lot about that millennial generation. I figured one of the things that I do with my groups that I'm with is we kind of take a little survey up front, and I kind of try to get some feedback from the audience, and I play a little game with them, and I kind of want to do that with you too, because I want to get your feedback. We're talking about young folks, right? So let's get your feedback here. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to pretend that a millennial has just come to work for you. Each one of you, okay? You got a millennial. It's just come to work for you specifically. It's their first day on the job. And we're going to say it's their first real job ever. So they're like 27. They're really excited to be there. They're a little bit nervous, and they're late. But now they get there. You have one moment to give them one piece of advice. And you want that piece of advice to last the rest of that millennial's career. Think about what that one sentence is. We're going to share out here in just a second, but I want you to think about that. And in fact, you know what? I'm going to give you about 15 seconds. Just share with somebody next to you. What's that gut reaction you have? What's that one piece of advice to last the rest of their careers? Take 15 seconds, share next to you, and we're going to share out. Ready, go. All right, time is up. So let's get some of that advice. I want to get some of the wisdom from this room. Who's willing to share? Yes, sir.
Keep learning.
Keep learning. Keep learning. I want to keep learning. We hear that a lot. I'll hear it a lot in corporate America. The reality is, keep learning gets trumped by, this is the way we've always done it. Right? That's not just in school, that's everywhere. Right? Keep learning. I love that. What else? I'll take a couple more. Couple more. Yes, sir.
Showing up on time is half of life.
Showing up on time is half of life. And you just lost half of your millennials right there. Beautiful. Yes, sir.
It's okay to trust someone over 30.
It's okay to trust someone over 30. That's right. I'm 37, so I believed that for 7 years about. Other than that, yeah. Last one, sir.
Keep your resume updated.
Keep your resume updated. People still use those things? Really? The resumes? All right, I like that. So I like to get this kind of advice. I like to hear it. Because then I like to break out a lot of times in small groups, and I like to see how that actually plays out in the lives of the people that are there, in the companies that I'm speaking to. So at this last conference, we had a whole bunch of speakers. It was a multi-day event, great event. So I had that little survey, and I had a lot of the same advice that we're getting in this room. So we go break out, and we get into these small groups, and each one of the speakers kind of takes over one of the groups here. And so I started talking to people. I said, all right, well, tell me where all this advice came from. Keep learning, things like that. Where did you guys get this? And they said, well, we learned this from experience. I mean, the experience taught us all of these things. And being the educator, I had to throw, what about in school? Didn't you learn this in school? Universally, the answer is, well, no. I mean, we didn't really get that. And so this past group in South Carolina, I said, well, tell me more about it. Did you get anything out of school? And almost universally, I had this group of about 10 people, and they were saying, no, you know, really, a little bit, I got some friends, I had a great time in sports, but I didn't really get this kind of advice. I didn't really get the impetus to live this way in school. So I said, well, what did you guys do about that? A couple of them who considered themselves very successful, very happy with what they were doing. They said, well, we just said, forget it. We blazed our own trails. We did what we knew we wanted to do, what we were good at, what we loved, and we've been successful because of that, and it's been fantastic. I'm so glad we made that decision. The rest of them in that group said, we never did it. We just continue to fall into this trap every year, the way things have always been done, doing what we're supposed to do. And now we're 40, 50, 60. We still have no idea who we are. We still have no idea what we're good at. We don't know what we want to be when we grow up, and we are very, very unfulfilled. Every single person in here knows somebody like that, guaranteed. Some of you guys might feel like that right now. Feel like, man, I have not been doing what I meant to do this entire time. That said, that's exactly what we are avoiding with Acton Academies. That is the exact opposite route we are taking with Acton Academies. I wrote a little piece about Acton here, and I want to read that to you, and I'm sure I'll stop and interject some things along the way because I can't keep my mouth closed. But you walk into an Acton Academy, and you might wonder if you stepped into a mythical world where students are heroes, learning's a quest, and adults are just guides for that journey. It's a one-room schoolhouse approach, and you might see K through 5 students in a room over here, and you might see 6th through 8th over here, and your high school students probably aren't on campus. The adult's merely a guide, and students have autonomy in every facet of their learning. Students come to Acton in order to find a calling that is going to change the world. The idea of a hero's journey inspires and develops everything we do at Acton. Students not only embark and reflect on their own journey, filled with challenges, allies, enemies, they also examine how famous scientists, scholars, generals, historical figures all heed their own calls to adventure, complete with roadblocks along the way. Once the students reach high school, their focus shifts to embracing and even monetizing their passions, pursuing callings in depth. And heroes go directly to experts in fields they're passionate about. They work part-time as interns, apprentices, employees, or entrepreneurs. And on a daily basis, students are in mixed age groups in one large open studio room, supported by the adult guides. Students will work on project-based assignments called quests, work independently on core skills of reading, writing, and math at their own pace, and control how they use and set their time based on SMART goals that they set with their running partners and with their parents. The students are truly only competing with their former selves. At other times throughout the day, the group comes together for Socratic discussions, and the Socratic Dialogue is used to discuss and dive into themes or issues arising in their projects. So, for example, was out at the Austin, Texas campus not too long ago and was meeting with some of the middle schoolers and was watching them engage in a Socratic dialogue. And so the guide sat down and all the students were there, and the guide showed the Challenger taking off. Students sat there and watched it, most of them for the first time, much like I watched it as a student in the 80s. And they see the Challenger take off, and the Challenger explodes. Video cuts to President Reagan, and President Reagan is addressing the nation. What do we do now? What does a hero do to step forward in this kind of situation? That video ends, and the guide starts to lead the Socratic discussion. He says, okay, you're President Reagan. Do you now double NASA's funding so that this never happens again? Or do you completely cut all of NASA's funding so that this never happens again? The floor is yours. What ended up happening there was about 30 minutes of an intellectual dialogue that I can't see most adults having, never mind a bunch of 12 and 13-year-olds. And they learned so much going back and forth, taking a hard stance, listening to one another, having this Socratic dialogue. And all the guy did was just continue to make sure that the flow went as it was supposed to, offering other questions when needed to keep things up and running. So during independent work on core skills like reading, writing, math, students will use adaptive software based on their needs and preferences. So they'll choose which skill they want to work on based on goals they set with their parents, with their running partners, and even the type of tool that they want to use to learn that skill. So you might see a student using Khan Academy or Dreambox to work on math. And we work directly with Sal Khan. He's actually developing a Khan Academy specifically for Actons. We're working on that kind of partnership right there. Some of the students might be in the corner reading a book, some brushing up on their grammar skills on No Red Ink. Students will also spend this time helping each other out when needed. The guide's there for support, but the guide does not facilitate direct instruction, and our guides never, ever answer a question. Ever. They're there to respond with another question. They're there to respond with options. But the whole impetus is to teach the students how to find answers for themselves. They offer choices. The student is in charge of figuring out the answer to his or her own problem. And I found this, speaking in education, and a couple years ago was pegged for a TEDx in education. And so in preparation for that, I went and visited a lot of these different models and some of the things that we're talking about today. I was visiting these schools and was blown away by how amazing the kids were in these different alternative programs, and that's really what turned me on to a lot of this, and you know, what really got me excited about where I saw education moving. But when I went to visit Acton, there was just something a little bit different, and it was the kids. It was the kids. I saw amazing children every single place I went, but the kids there had something different, and I was trying to put my finger on what it was. What was the difference? Why did I decide afterwards that Acton was what it was that I was going to build in my community? And the best analogy I can give you is this. If you take a child and all you feed them is candy, processed food, garbage, they're not going to die right that second. Right? Not even going to always be sick. I mean, they'll function normally. At some point, though, that's going to catch up with them. That's your traditional model of education. That's your traditional schooling right there. What we're here doing, we're talking about self-directed ways to learn. We are feeding that child whole foods, organic foods, giving them plenty of sunshine, a little bit of exercise. That is what we are doing for those kids. At Acton, that just takes it one little step further. We do all of that with the self-directed learning, but then we just try to optimize human performance. We then take them to that next level of, okay, now we're going to be the elite athlete. That's kind of the focus of that. We're just going to take it one step further. Who are you? What are you amazing at? What do you love? Let's exploit that so that you have a fulfilling life that is literally changing the world. That's kind of the mentality that we have. And parents usually ask, you know, what the curriculum is at Acton, and you know, the tools change, whether they're looking at an entomology quest or an aerospace quest or an entrepreneurship quest, what have you. The curriculum remains the same. The curriculum is self-awareness. The curriculum is self-assurance. The curriculum is character. The curriculum is giving. The curriculum is happiness. The curriculum is living a hero's journey. It's all of those things I wish I saw in adults, never mind children. That's the curriculum. Our quest, the Socratic discussions, the goal setting, the community covenants, the student-led core times, all of that, those are the mediums that allow that curriculum to unfold. So last month, or it might have been earlier this month, Acton was featured in Inc. magazine as a school of the future, and they specifically said it's a school that wants to create the next Mark Zuckerberg. Appreciate the sentiment. I think that description does a disservice to the community, though, for a couple reasons. Are Acton's schools of the future? Yeah, I think they are a big piece of that puzzle. I think all these other people that you were hearing this morning, they're a giant piece of that puzzle too. So I don't like ever painting one system as the way to go. And that's why, and Emily will tell you right here, we're a couple miles down the road, Emily from Free to Learn, also in Rockland, California, and I will sing her praises till I die. What they're doing over there is amazing. It looks different from us, but families look different, kids look different. I'm about options. Let's have options. That's what this whole thing is about. Let's have options. But let's make all those options way better than the compulsory garbage schooling we know we've been fed. Right? That's the whole thing. So, again, I don't want to say this is the school of the future. It's one of the schools of the future, but it's also one of the schools of the right now. And I think that gets lost in the conversation. And then another thing, might we, you know, create the next Zuckerberg? Sure. If that's what a student wants, if that's their particular journey, fantastic. We might create the next Oprah or Gates or Buffett or what. I mean, and that's all great. If that's what the student wants, fantastic. But I think we're more invested in cultivating an individual rather than a carbon copy of somebody else. We're cultivating who that person is supposed to be, and we're invested in a community that's going to support that goal. They're going to support every young hero to become the best possible version of his or herself, and support them in finding that calling so they can make the unique stamp on the world. So, kind of back again to that conference in South Carolina. At the end, we kind of broke off into some other small groups. All the speakers have been done, and we actually just listened to the final speaker, who is an amazing man. His name's Jeff Hoffman. And I've gotten to do a couple things with Jeff. And Jeff, if you don't know who that is he invented airport kiosks, and then went on to be the co-founder of Priceline.com, and has been business advisor to the White House, both in the Obama administration, now again in Trump, and just one of the most amazing, most brilliant, most giving and generous individuals I've ever met in my life. He's amazing. So we just got done listening to him, and some of the speakers got together and kind of had our own little small group, and Jeff had just talked to us about the power of wonder, and I was in a group of what you'd call some success, I mean, a lot of people that I look up to, and some authors and speakers and some CEOs, and we're sitting there talking about life, and they're visibly passionate about what they do, and just this amazing group. And I was this little peon over here on the side, and somebody said, well, tell me, kind of what's the business that you're working on? What are you doing? I've seen you speak on generations. I said, yeah, we speak, I speak on generations quite a bit. And they said, that's great. And didn't you do some things, aren't you doing some things, and you're active in education, right? I said, yeah. I said, I'm actually opening a school in Northern California. And they said, well, tell us about the school. So I start describing the school and kind of our philosophy and what we do, and they're going, man, that's it. That's fantastic. You know what it sounds like? One of them says to me, it sounds like an Acton Academy. I said, well, yeah, that's exactly what it is. We're going to be the first one in Northern California. You're like, oh, why didn't you just say so? My kid goes to Acton in Austin. Another one over here says, oh, mine goes to the one in Houston, and this one over, mine goes to the one in Las Cruces. We wouldn't have it, any other way. We've never seen a model of education that blends self-directed learning with goal setting and bringing so much passion to the table. So you have these people who are these driven people, and that's all fantastic. They're success. That's fantastic. What they are is fulfilled. What they are is self-aware. What they are is excited to get up every single day and do what it is that they do. And that's exactly what we're building in Northern California there at Acton and Placer. So I know we only have about a minute left here, so if you're interested in learning more, I invite you to exploreactonacademy.org. You can go on YouTube. You can see a lot of the videos that are there. If somebody you know is in Sacramento or Placer counties and you want to take a look at Acton Placer, I'm always glad to talk. But most importantly, regardless of whatever it is, whether it's Acton, whether it's Free to Learn, whether it's North Star, wherever you go with your kids, I just encourage you to take advantage of asking them to live that hero's journey. Encourage them to find a calling. Encourage them to want to change the world and make sure they're on that path. And you get to sit back and watch them change the world. So thank you guys. Thank you, David. Thank you for all you guys do, man. I appreciate it.
Any questions for Acton Academy, owner here in Rockland, California? Questions for Acton?
My question was, do you have a way to do Acton curriculum or whatever online and interact through the web? Like web courses for children?
That's a great question. We don't have anything specifically set up for that, partially because a lot of what we do is that Socratic dialogue, right? So that Socratic dialogue, the kid you can only go so far having that kind of conversation with yourself before people start thinking you're crazy. And then the quests as well. These are real world projects. So students will be grouped together and they'll be starting a business, and we're going to have a business fair in the community. So the groups are going to be meeting together and operating these quests, which are really real world projects. So while we can still possibly take those quests, and you can kind of go on that as a homeschooled student if you were by yourself, completely plausible. They're not necessarily designed for that. And then as far as the self-directed part of the core skills, we really utilize tools that are already available. So Khan Academy is a big one for us. Dreambox is big, No Red Ink, Duolingo, Rosetta Stone. I mean, we'll implement all those based on what the student wants, what they like to use, and those are readily available as it is.
And I had one more question, and thank you.
Sure.
What kind of training or development does the guide go through to be able to be a guide in a school like this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So these are all individually owned and individually operated, but we all work together. So there's 60 of us, and I'm active on the owners forum every single day. We meet a few times a year. We'll gather in Austin and continuously have support for each other as owners, but we do the same thing with the guides. So the guides have forums that it's a continuous feedback loop is really what it ends up being. We are very active saying, hey, look, here's what we did with our kids. This worked out really, really well. You guys should try this. Here's what we did with our kids. This sucked. Don't do this. Here's a mistake we made, right? We'll have those kind of conversations Other than that, it's up to the individual owners as far as the guides go and what kind of training they want. But really, a lot of times we'll get somebody from like a Montessori kind of background because they kind of understand that methodology and are going for it. One of the things, really one of the commonalities, is we don't often take credentialed teachers. A lot of times they've gone through specific training, especially if they've been in school for a number of years teaching a certain way. Not that they don't believe in what we're doing, it's hard to make that transition. So, you know, but that's very much a specific owner's it's kind of up to them on how they want to train those guides. I'm very fortunate to have a fantastic staff that is coming on, but it is going to be kind of individual based on where you go. Ma'am. So the majority of the schools are set up to not go over really 100, 120 total. Roughly 30 to 35 in an elementary studio, same in a middle school studio, same in a high school studio. And that's really where people will max out. And so Houston, for example, they grew really, really quickly, so immediately they set up a separate campus as opposed to putting more students in that community. We're gonna do much of the same. I will never go over probably 100 students total, ever. If we have more of a list that comes after that, which would be fantastic, we will put it in a different area. We'll open a separate campus in a different area of that Sacramento region, which is ultimately kind of what we're going to go for.
But is it an 8 to 3 day?
Days are,
regular, so
yeah, very similar, yeah.
And all of that?
Well, it's not, there's no class like that, so they'll have core skills time, so we might say, hey, you know, for this part of the schedule right here, we got about an hour and a half that we're going to take on core skills, and then we're going to jump into our projects, and students have, you know, they're the ones setting their goals with their running partners, with their parents, and so they'll decide kind of what that hour and a half looks like for them, what they want to work on for those core skills right there. And then we'll jump into a Socratic discussion or jump into whatever that quest is. And every quest is about 5 or 6 weeks long with a deliverable at the end. So we will do something at the end that says, hey, we started this business here. Hey, we created this product and we're bringing it to market. Hey, whatever that 6 weeks was, we have a kind of a public display at the end, and we've been working directly with Larry Rosenstock of High Tech High on kind of how to make some of those even more meaningful. We'll have a deliverable at the end that we'll work on with those quests.
How do you, what if a quest, say, for a student doesn't work out and they're having it to be in a group? How does the guide encourage the student to continue on or maybe change the quest? Or, I mean, how do they go about that?
Sure, that's a great question, and that's when you start getting into the individual and what that student is you know, kind of has a proclivity for, right? And so the reality is that doesn't happen as much as you think, because the students understand they have a voice. They also understand that, say this quest, a deliverable, we're actually going to be putting on a performance on stage, and one of the kids is like, I'm terrified, there's no way I'm going to get up on stage, that's not me. Okay, what part of that are you excited about? So for example, so Austin had a kind of an arts sort of quest, and they actually wrote, produced, and put on a play at their local city theater. They sold tickets for it, they promoted it, they marketed it, sold, and kind of made a profit from it. So it was, from start to finish, that quest entailed a whole bunch of different things. Some of the kids were like, there's no way I'm getting on stage. But what they really wanted to do was create the digital advertising for that, right? They found a piece in that puzzle that they could own, because that's where they are right now. And that's great. You still get the benefit of being involved in all of that. You still see all of that go on while getting to take ownership of a piece that at the end we can all come together and go, man, that turned out amazing, and we all played our role in that. So having a quest where a specific student's like, nope, I'm not doing any of this, not doing any of this, you know, honestly, I don't know, we haven't seen it at our school because we haven't opened, but we haven't seen it.
That's good.
Matt Beaudreau, ladies and gentlemen.